Could I ask IT colleagues to please start the recording? Okay, the recording started. Thank you very much. Aileen, can I ask you to call for the sailor and intimate any apologies, please?
Good morning, members. Can I get you to confirm your attendance when I call your name, please? Councillor Barton.
Yeah, thanks, Aileen.
Councillor McGee.
Yeah.
Councillor Friel. Councillor Cowan. Oh, I've got apologies to Councillor Cowan, sorry. Councillor Sangster.
Here, Aileen, thank you.
Councillor Maven.
Present, good morning.
Councillor Maitland.
Here.
Councillor Lennox.
Morning here.
Councillor Crawford. Councillor Watts.
Morning, I'm here.
Councillor Filson.
Yep.
I've got apologies from Councillor Hogg and Councillor Kyle. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Aileen. So members, we're going to move on to item 1 on the agenda, and that is any declarations of interest. Don't see anybody in the room or online. Thank you very much, members. So we're going to move on to item 2 on the agenda, and that is the hearing procedure. I'm going to ask Aileen to take us through that.
So we've got one hearing this morning. The process for that is that the planning officer will give details of the application. Objectors will then present their objections and will be given 5 minutes each or extra time where it's been allocated in advance. Members of the committee will have the opportunity to ask questions of objectors on their submissions. The applicant and or their agents will then get an opportunity to speak for 15 minutes, with committees being given the opportunity to ask questions again. At that point, the hearing will close. The planning officer will give appropriate clarification on any issues raised, and the committee will determine their decision.
Thank you, Aileen. So members, moving straight on to item 3 on the agenda, and that is planning application number 24/0249/PP, and that is proposed residential development of 29 number detached and semi-detached houses, with associated works at land adjacent to Home Farm in the B7081 from Moat View to Gatehead. That's in Crosshouse, Kilmarnock, East Ayrshire, KA2 0BQ by Don Holmes, and that's in pages 5 to 34 of your papers. Members, at this point, I'm going to bring in Craig Young, a legal representative, who's going to update us on a few things.
Good morning, members. As you'll be aware, this planning application was originally due to be considered by the Planning Committee on the 26th of September. However, due to a late challenge, the decision was taken to remove it from the agenda of the committee on a precautionary basis to consider matters further. Having considered those matters and following up input from relevant colleagues, we were satisfied at that stage that the application could be considered by the Planning Committee, and arrangements were then obviously made for the application to be placed in the agenda for today's committee. However, on Wednesday evening, we did receive a further challenge raising questions over the noise impact assessment that had been that forms part of this application, and we're currently working through the correspondence we received. However, we are satisfied that the Planning Committee can consider and determine the application on its individual planning merits. Now, without prejudice to the outcome of the issues that we're working our way through, it is clear to officers at this table that there are noise mitigation measures available. Now, whether that may come forward as it's currently suggested or it's similar measures, it is clear that mitigation measures are available to us for this development. However, given the current issues raised over the noise impact assessment, what I am suggesting and advising today, members, is that you, on a without prejudice basis, we don't take account of the noise impact assessment that has been submitted, and where there's reference to it in the papers, we just simply ignore that reference in the papers. However, on the basis that we do consider that there are noise mitigation measures available for this and are or will likely come forward, we would advise members that we are proposing to amend one of the draft conditions at the back of your papers, and in particular the condition relating to condition 26. Now, what that condition we're suggesting is, as it currently stands, it just refers to acoustic fencing, but we would suggest we will be inviting you, if ultimately you're minded to follow the recommendation and approve, that the amended condition would say basically that no development would commence on its site, essentially, until noise mitigation measures were brought forward for approval by the planning authority in consultation with environmental health. And Fiona, to my right, will set out the proposed wording more fully during her presentation. And this condition can therefore be attached to any consent in the event, and I'm not prejudging anything for 1 minute, in the event that members were minded to follow the recommendation. Further, members, I would suggest that in that event, if members were minded to go with the recommendation, that actually the discharge of that condition would be brought back to members for formal discharge. The reason for that is twofold. Firstly, it provides consistency of decision making, given you're considering the application before you this morning. And secondly, it also allows members to scrutinise and be satisfied that the mitigation measures are appropriate at this site in relation to noise. In my opinion, this dealing with the noise in that way is reasonable and proportionate, and it'll allow the committee to take a decision on its planning merits, which minimises any potential challenges, certainly on the grounds of noise.
Thanks, Craig. Can I just clarify at this point, would you need the committee to agree to that, to go forward on that basis, or would just wait to go through the hearing process?
I think members should go through the hearing process. Certainly, I'm just advising that I think we can deal with this on a legally competent basis on that way. Obviously, members, as I understand, there is a hearing process, and there may be other matters that you want to take account of, but certainly, given the challenges that we have, we feel we can deal with it on that basis. And the way to deal with it is not to take account of the current noise impact assessment, but deal with it by way of a condition which would require the mitigation measures to be brought in at a later date.
Right, thanks for clarifying that, Craig. As Craig just highlighted, members, we do have a hearing this morning, and as Aileen had pointed out, we're proposing 5 minutes for each objector and 15 minutes for the agent. I think Miss Fiona Evans will receive 10 minutes because she's speaking on behalf of herself and the Community Council. So we're okay with that, members? Okay then. So I'm going to open the hearing procedure, and part one of the procedure is where we hear from the Planning Department, and I think I'm going to hand over to Fiona Finlay, who's going to take us through the presentation.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, ladies and gentlemen. As Craig has highlighted, there were issues for the application not being previously considered in September. And just to clarify for you that the only changes we've made to the report since that date would be to accurately reflect a property address on Irvine Road within the report. We have before committee an application for planning permission for 29 houses on land adjacent to Home Farm Cross House for consideration and determination. Members previously had an opportunity to attend a site visit, and officers from the Ayrshire Roads Alliance and Planning were attendance at that visit. This is a revised application from a previous application for 39 houses that was refused and dismissed on appeal in 2023 for the reasons that are noted on paragraph 15 of your report on page 10. The site is allocated within the local development plan as a housing opportunity site with an indicative 30 house capacity and is within the settlement boundary for Cross House. The site is located to the west of the village, accessed from the B7081 Irvine Road, with Home Farm to the immediate west of the site, and there are residential properties to the east. The application proposes 29 units in a mix of 4 semi-detached and 25 detached houses for mainstream houses for sale. There are no affordable units proposed because the application is below the threshold for affordable homes. Further details of the design of the development start at paragraph 8 of your report on page 6, and the layout is set out in a block pattern with a single access point onto the Irvine Road. And I'll just refer to the screens, members, and you can have a look at the plans and some site photographs. So here we have, move now, Here we have just a general plan of Crosshouse with the layout. You can see the maternity unit and the Crosshouse Hospital to the east. And over here to the west, you can see the application site marked in red. And I don't know whether you can see my cursor, but anyway, it's marked in red here at the west. You can see Home Farm to the west of the site, residential properties to the east, and you can see the Carmel Water to the south. This is the location plan that's been provided by the applicant, and we've just put that in to show the site just in a little bit more detail before we show you the layout. Here's the proposed layout, members. You can see the access from the B7081 at the front of the site. Coming into the site, you can see the block pattern as the road moves round. You can see down at the very southern area of the site, members, open space, a pathway and some informal play space down there. You can see a landscape bund at the front running along the western boundary with Home Farm, and you can see the houses laid out in that pattern as they are. What you can also see, members, is that landscaping along the frontage of the site with a hedgerow, and you can also see how the houses have a secondary access along the north of the site, facing forward so that there's an active frontage to the layout. You can see some semi-detached properties down to the southeast, members, and you can see the detached layout of the remaining properties thereafter. I've just got 3 house type plans just to show you, members, the variety of house types that are proposed. This is one of the smaller house types, members, for you. And then we have a 4-bedroom house. And another property there is a detached property. This is just a snip from the landscape plan, members, which we've tried to put in so that we can show you the general landscaping areas. We've taken out a lot of the writing from this plan and just put a snip in, because otherwise you can't really, the plan has less legibility if we do that. So we've snipped the plan just to show you, and you can see the landscaping that's proposed along here. To the east, members, you can see the open space area down here. You can see this landscaped area to the west as well. And you can also see, members, the sort of hedging that's proposed along the front at front gardens. Given the countryside edge, we've asked the developer for that to try and create a more green development throughout the layout. And you can see the corner sites, you can see where the landscaping and the hedging is going round the plot boundaries themselves to create a softer edge as you go through the site. This is the Crosshouse development plan map from the local development plan 2, which is the current adopted local development plan, and you can see the site in this kind of buff colour, which indicates that it is a development opportunity site for housing purposes. I'm getting tongue-tied, members, I do apologise. We have some photographs here, members. We have the access point looking into the site, just in the centre of the photograph. We have looking back towards Crosshouse from the access point. And we have looking in the other direction towards the edge of the settlement boundary from the access point. This is a view from within the site, members, just looking southwards. We put a couple of images just across the site for you, members. Again, this is a view across the site looking towards the residential properties and the surrounding streets. And this is a view to Home Farm as well, members, from within the site looking to the north. I'm going to take you back, members, and I'll leave the site plan up for you to have a little look in case you want to see that or refer to that throughout the process. Turning back to the report, in terms of the consultations that are outlined in the report, we have no objections from consultees, and comments are detailed on page 10 at paragraph 18. We have no objections from ARA in relation to odour. Environmental Health have also got no objections. It's noted that no other consultee listed within your report has any other objections, including East Ayrshire Leisure, who have reviewed the proposals from an ecological and protected species perspective, advising they were content with the applicant's ecological report. 47 parties have objected to the application, and we have no letters supporting the application. All points raised are outlined in the report, starting at page 11, paragraph 27, and these are divided into material planning issues and non-material planning issues for clarity. The primary considerations for this proposal are outlined and reviewed, starting on page 14 of your report. As I've said to you, the site is designated as a residential development opportunity site, with the principle of the development for such purposes supported and encouraged by the policies of LDP2 and NPF4. The proposal represents an appropriate layout and density for a new housing development. There is sufficient separation between existing and proposed properties. The proposed development seeks to accord with the principles of placemaking and create a development which incorporates 6 qualities of a successful place to create an attractive development that sits successfully within the local streetscape and is sympathetic to the immediate area and the overall settlement of Chris House. It will create a safe, accessible development and will include spaces that can be easily negotiated by foot, bicycle and public transport. The provision of high-quality open space throughout the development will ensure that the development integrates into the adjacent semi-rural environment and green backdrop. The houses are of a standard house type with the use of good quality materials and finishes to give a high-quality development. The design and layout have responded to site constraints, and the use of significant landscaping, as I've illustrated to you in the plans, will enhance its setting and complement the location. Residential amenity issues of privacy, overlooking and air quality have all been addressed and can be secured by planning conditions where required. Negotiations with the applicant have resulted in an agreed developer contribution, and technical matters including traffic, flooding and drainage and other relevant matters have been addressed. The applicant has demonstrated through their supplementary reports that development can be accommodated subject to the recommendations being implemented without significant and detrimental impacts upon the road network, landscape, surrounding properties or wildlife and biodiversity. In this instance, the proposal is considered to be compliant with the development plan overall, subject to the appropriate planning conditions. It's therefore recommended that if the planning committee is minded to approve the application, this is subject to the conditions outlined at the end of the report, which I will also clarify in a minute, with the changes and the conclusion of a legal agreement under Section 75 of the Act to ensure that prior to the issue of a decision notice to secure the payment of the appropriate contribution. Further to noise matters, I'd just like to update members with the changes that Craig has already alluded to. If I could ask members just to turn to page, bear with me, 28 of your report. We would like to delete condition 6 members, which refers to the noise impact assessment, and thereafter the other conditions would be renumbered. Turning down to condition 26, which is on page, let's get my page numbers, page 32. We would like to amend the wording of that condition. It's quite a long, detailed condition, but I'll run through it with you just now. So what we'd like to say in condition 26A, we'd like to address the fact that for the avoidance of doubt, the noise mitigation measures along the western boundary of the application site indicated on the following plans or within the following documents are not approved and do not form part of the planning consent. That would be, and it's just where the noise mitigation measures are detailed in those documents. It's not removing the documents altogether. So you've got proposed site plans, a garden area plan, site sections, landscape proposals, a planning statement, cross-house design summary, an attenuation fence drawing, and the noise impact assessment. Condition 26B would then say that no development shall commence on site until full details of the proposed noise mitigation measures for the application site have been submitted to and approved in writing by the Planning Authority in consultation with the Council's Environmental Health Service. Condition 26C would then say that further to condition 26B, the approved noise mitigation solutions shall be thereafter implemented on site prior to the occupation of any of the properties within plots 1, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 and 14 or any other plot highlighted as requiring noise mitigation and shall be maintained as approved thereafter in perpetuity. The reason for that condition would be to ensure that the suitable noise mitigation measures are implemented on site to prevent adverse noise effects surrounding noise generating sources and in the interests of residential amenity. So that it's quite a lot to take in, members. I do appreciate that, but that would be condition 26 as revised. There's one other change, members, that I'd like to ask in relation to condition 2, and apologies, members, for having to do your papers, but that would take us back to page 27. I'll give you all a minute. Everybody there? What I would like to do in condition 2A, we talk about no development shall commence on site until a traffic regulation order extending the 30-mile-an-hour limits to the western extent. I'd just like to change that to the word west. So I'd like to take out western extent and change that to west, just to give us a bit more fluidity as to where we might want to, where ARA might want to address putting the 30-mile-an-hour limit, etc., to the west of the site, and that gives us a bit more fluidity. And then in condition 26B, I'd just like to take out the western extent and say the word west again.
2B.
2B, sorry. Craig just corrected me with the numbering. But yes, that would take us out in condition 2B to the west as well. So apologies, members, for the various changes. Obviously, Craig and myself are happy to answer any questions about that as we move on through the item. And I'll pass back to Councillor Barton.
Thanks, Fiona. So members, we move on to part 2 of the hearing. And this is where we hear from the objectors or their agents.
I thought we could have asked a question there regarding the conditions. No, was that to do that later?
Perhaps, Chair, it may be appropriate if we deal with them after the hearings maybe closed. We can come back to them.
Right, okay, that's fine.
Okay, okay with that, John? Yep, thanks. So members, yeah, we're on to part 2 of the hearing. It's where we hear from the objectors or their agents who will present their objections to the committee in support of their written objections. So the first objector I have, could I invite Janice McPherson up to the lectern, please? Mrs. McPherson, so it's 5 minutes. What I tend to do is maybe look, when you've got a minute left, just give a gentle reminder and then just to try and give you a minute to wrap up, if that's okay. Yeah, that's fine. Just take your time, and after you've done your presentation, we open it up to members to ask you questions, if that's okay. Thanks.
Welcome back. It's just a few years since we were last here when the previous application by Down Homes was refused by East Ayrshire Council and then also the Scottish Government. What's changed? Well, not very much. All 8 refusal points in the decision notice by David Mitchell still stand, even more now than then. The children's play park still dangerously in the deepest part of the flood zone, a flood zone that's incorrectly shown on Down Homes plans. The flood zone clearly encompasses plots 13 to 16, as shown in the multiple photographs I've emailed in. And once this site is covered in houses, pavements and roads, the surface water and burst banks of Carmel water will have nowhere to go and immediately cause even higher flooding. Pumping it back into the Carmel waters, as they suggest, will rise these levels even further. Home Farm still working, still fully there. No amount of untruthful and distorted reports is ever going to change that. The noise report, debunked by Bill Gilchrist, Environmental Health, and then added to by DNR Rural, who have never even visited the site, based their report on the debunked first report. Really? DNR misled by reporting time and noise of the farm operation based on modern equipment that the farm don't even own, and timings that they estimate. This report isn't worth the paper it was written on. If an 8-foot-high dense hedge doesn't keep noise out, how will a mound of earth and a little fence do it? We live 300 metres away. We smell it. We hear it. I ask again, was DNR Rural the land agent for the sale of this land to Down Homes? And is their commission based on attaining planning permission? If so, the DNR Rural report has a conflict of interest. Can I ask why Down Homes was the only farm when this is an envelope site surrounded by 3 farms? The farm directly behind Home Farm borders over half the length of the site on the west. It harvests silage every 3 to 4 weeks from April to October, and it can harvest and last up to 3 days, sometimes up to 11 o'clock at night. The noise of that combine harvester far exceeds the 112 decibels that was put in any noise report. The bund and fencing to negate this noise is inaccurately based on only Home Farm and not the harvesting, and not even the equipment Home Farm own. It's woefully inaccurate and misleading, and it doesn't consider all farming noise on the site. Overlooking neighbours is even worse than the last time. Plots 26 through to 29 have been turned side on to Moat View, which now puts them directly in line with Crawford Hill Place. Plot 29 is reported as a mere 14.5 metres from my home, but actually it's under 12 metres if you check the plans. To be transparent, the handler's report says 18.5 metres is the minimum national standard distance permitted. How can this be acceptable? Because it's not. My home is elevated above the site. My 6-foot garden fence is below the level of my house. So I've got uninterrupted views straight across the site. Donholm putting another 6-foot fence up won't make a difference to any privacy. My downstairs sitting room is at eye level with the bedroom windows of the new houses, and I look directly into them. So I'll look directly uninterrupted into all of their downstairs. I'll see every movement they make and they'll see every movement I make. Just 12 metres apart. That's less than the distance from me to you guys. Turning the houses reduces the distance to Moat View from the previous refused plans to 19 metres. Is everybody aware just how high the gabion walls at Moat View are? Digging down to level that land first and then even further to lay foundations so close to these gabion walls will compromise these walls. And who'll be responsible? Because Don Holmes has dodged that question for years. Before retiring, I was responsible for over 200 commercial properties and I had a £5 million annual property budget. That was my job. Consulting with 2 of my structural surveyors, they tell me that the gabion walls show wear and tear but are structurally sound, and with usual maintenance they'll see 50 years out. However, digging down just 6 foot, which is going to be a lot deeper, at the distance that Donholm are suggesting, the walls will crumble. Moat View and Crawford Hill Place have a right to live in their homes without encumberment to light and privacy, never mind having their homes put at threat of damage and destruction. The proposed road changes breaks government legislation.
Miss McPherson, that's the 5 minutes.
Sorry, I'm just
But no, it's fine. You
nervous.
just kind of try and sum up. Then
Right, I'll go as quick. I've only got 2 paragraphs left. 90-metre splays when it should be 210. It's an emergency vehicle route. Indeed, the new homes 1 mile away towards Springside had to have 190-metre splays. What are the difference for Don Holmes? Why are they allowed to break the rules? The Scottish Government designing a street policy states emergency vehicles must be given full consideration. Changing it 30 miles an hour will not negate emergency vehicles of the right to exceed this speed. Not a day in 8.5 years I've lived there have I not heard 1 or more blue lights. If you're travelling at 60 miles an hour, you need 140 miles to stop, 140 metres to stop. How can 90 be safe? They're not even having the road width right, under 3.7 metres. Not forgetting exceeding traffic. Where's the ecology and biodiversity? Nature Scot are concerned about this site. There's goshawks, there's otters, there's barn owls. They get an English company to do a report that doesn't even know the site or the local. And that report expired on the 25th. Sorry.
You really need to sum up.
Let's be clear, Don Holmes throughout this process have been economical with the truth, from missing smell surveys to distorted noise surveys, to completing stage road surveys that requested by ARA, to no speed surveys, not even marking out the road. 90 metres cannot be achieved, 84 is all they can do. Why such cloak and dagger with missing or inaccurate reports? They have been fined by the Health and Safety for breaches regarding burying asbestos.
Really going to have to stop there, thanks.
And £558,000 compensation for gagging a whistleblower. That's why. They won't build here. They've already sold 2,500 plots at 64 million. They're land agents, not builders. Approving will leave new residents unable to open windows and enjoy their properties, put kids' lives at risk.
It's just in fairness for the applicant as well that I can't. It's 30 minutes between all objectors. So. No, I would really have to insist on this one. Thanks. No, it's well over the time. Thanks. Okay, thanks, Ms McPherson. So members, open up to any questions? No, there's nobody in the room or online. So thank you very much, Ms McPherson. If you could just turn to the public gallery, thanks. No, it's the next objector that's up now.
Chair, can I ask a question, please? Can I ask a
Yep,
question?
Councillor Filson, yep.
I was wanting to ask a question, if that's okay. I'd like to ask you a question. If you'd like to sit back down. You were saying there you've stayed there for 8.5 years. Do you know of any near misses or accidents coming out of the farm itself?
Yeah,
That
tons of them. My sister-in-law's car was turned over trying to pull out of Crawford Hill Place just a few years ago. Myself and my dog were nearly knocked down when a car mounted the pavement. They've all been reported to the council.
thanks very much. I've just
Okay,
Right,
is
thank
nobody
you.
interested in the Gabion walls?
Can I invite Mr. Frank Smith up to the lectern, please? Mr. Smith, yep, it's 5 minutes, and I could have kindly asked that people stick to their time. It's
Okay. Good morning, Chair, members of the committee. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. We have here today Don Holmes Springfield, who are a significant donor to the SNP. Springfield Sandy Adams also received an OBE. We also have an SNP-dominated planning committee. I hope today that this planning application will be voted purely on its merits, of which there are few. Here I am again defending my home where I have lived all my life and my business from the predations of Don Holmes. I've had the safety of my animals threatened. An attempt was made at putting us out of business, and my integrity has been repeatedly called into question. In 2021, Springfield were fined $10,000 for breaching health and safety laws over asbestos exposure at a site in Milton of Campsie. These are the people questioning my integrity and the ones that we are expecting to present an open and honest and fit for purpose development. The report of handling has 27 conditions attached. With the subsections, that's almost 70 recommendations. Mr. Patrick, Springfield's principal planner, used to be a council planning officer, so why is this application so bad? I hope East Ayrshire Council are prepared to have a desk in the Fiscal's office. The NIA modelling is based on a 4-metre high bund. I would like to point out to the committee that fences are 30% less effective at absorbing noise than bunds. Can the planning office guarantee that they have checked the modelling and the design is fit for purpose? A 13-foot high acoustic barrier, as is proposed, will make the approach to Cross House look more like the run-up to Barlinnie, and no consideration has been given for the visual amenity of the approach to the village. Sections 737 and 813 of the Noise Impact Assessment state that noise levels cannot be achieved in an open window scenario. Does the Planning Committee think this is suitable for residential amenity? Bureau Veritas also hasn't included the closest house in their modelling. Sure, this means that the design is being misrepresented. Planning have already discussed the possibility of enforcement actions. How bad is this application? No evidence has been produced to prove that the garden spaces will be usable when tractors are running. An odour survey conducted when the farm was mucking out has never been presented, even although the Scottish Government reporter wanted noise and odours assessed and Environmental Health said one odour survey wasn't enough. Bureau Veritas's noise impact assessment does not follow the basic guidelines required by British Standard 8233, which requires noise surveys be conducted when adjacent noise sources are in operation. Instead, speculative comments by Davidson and Robertson are replacing proper evidential support. and being used as an excuse to scope out early morning activities. The Davidson and Robertson report was itself a breach of the Data Protection Act, and my complaint has been accepted as valid by the ICO, and they are investigating. Should the ICO uphold my complaint, the entire NIA could be declared unlawful. Davidson and Robertson are also cited as impartial. They've had involvement with the site since as far back as 2019. And the final insult to the planning process, Davidson and Robertson are making judgments based on equipment that is not even present at the farm. Ayrshire Roads Alliance have consistently refused to engage with locals and the Community Council.
Mr Smith, that's just a gentle 1 minute reminder to end your time.
Thank you. A traffic speed survey has never been published. Design concerns concluded in stage 1 road safety audit with the pavement terminating behind a hedge is being ignored by Ayrshire Roads Alliance in planning. The signage for the proposed new extension will block out the visibility space from Holmes Farm. Am I going to get a build out the same as what has been freely given to Don Holmes? Don Holmes are yet again receiving special treatment as they have not been required to demonstrate the sightlines. Planning have refused to protect my septic tank, even although it is a legally protected status and needs treated as a material consideration. Don Holmes' plans do not show any acceptable designs that will protect the septic tank. When Don Holmes destroy my septic tank, our house will be uninhabitable due to the inactions of the planning office. There are no designs to protect the supporting walls at Moat View, whose houses, when those houses subside, the young families will be homeless.
Can I just ask you to sum up now, Mr Smith?
I'm just summing up now. There are significant procedural failings in the handling of this application by the Planning Office. There is no credible speed survey, the acoustic evidence lacks credibility and fails to meet British standards. The NIA is supported by documentation that is part of a GDPR breach, and there is a complete refusal to properly protect legally recognised infrastructure that will see people's homes destroyed and people homeless. I would like to respectfully suggest to the Planning Committee that they, at the very least, pause this application until the ICO produce their findings. And in the interim, I would like to request that the Governance and Ethics Committee order an investigation into Ayrshire Roads Alliance and the Planning Office, please. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mr Smith. Before we up to questions, I'd just like to clarify it's a non-political quasi-judicial committee, and I certainly hope you're not questioning integrity of members of the committee, because that's certainly not the case. So members open to questions for Mr Smith. Yep, Councillor Sangster.
Yeah, Mr Smith, I'm just, can you tell me a wee bit more about the septic tank and what does that actually do for your house and how will it impact if...
The septic tank is a sewerage system that is licensed and regulated by Scottish Water. It was put in the 60s when it was the old Clyde River Purification Board. And it has the same protections as the sewage main that is at the other side of the site. When the septic tank's destroyed, you're looking at an environmental hazard, which would involve SEPA. But on a legal issue, the septic tank is legal protection, and because it has been identified at planning, they have a duty of care to ensure that that infrastructure is correctly treated, looked after.
Okay, thank you.
Members, any further questions for Mr Smith? Okay, Mr Smith, thanks very much. If we just ask you to return to the public gallery. Can I invite Mrs Fiona Evans, please, to the lectern? And Mrs Evans, I think you're going to speak on behalf of yourself and the Community Council. So, yeah, okay. So, I'm going to allocate 10 minutes. Thanks.
This is a statement from Crosshouse Community Council. The developers have not consulted Crosshouse Community Council about this revised planning application, which proposes significant changes to the B7081, a key emergency route through our village. The Community Council is a statutory consultee in the planning process. Many issues raised and requests have not been dealt with by the Planning Department or East Ayrshire Roads Alliance. We requested that the road narrowing, build-out, visibility displays, pavement crossing points were fully marked on the ground before the site visit by the Planning Committee. This never happened. We requested that a speed survey be made available for public scrutiny. This never happened. Serious concerns have been raised by villagers that someone will be killed at this new access. We would like a proper consultation with the Community Council, with bus services, with the fire service, with ambulance service, with the police service about the design of the new access build-out and road narrowing. The traffic regulation order only addresses moving the 30 zone further west. It does not address major safety concerns about this pavement and access. The developer is proposing a build-out on a blind bend near the crest of a hill, which I believe those photos don't represent, that we saw earlier. Other sensible safety options for access into this site have not been explored, such as a roundabout, a sitting off area. A sitting off area would avoid rear end crashes. A sitting off area would ensure free flow of traffic. A sitting off area would allow emergency response times and bus timetables to remain the same. A sitting off area would avoid further gridlock when bypass traffic is diverted through the village. The community knows the problems on this road. It has ideas. They have been ignored. The increasing HGV traffic from the new industrial estate opposite the hospital has not been considered anywhere in this application, in the ARA consultation response or in the report of handling, despite it being raised in the planning objections. The industrial estate access passed by this committee opens out onto the roundabout on Irving Road. Sat-navs will take exiting HGVs, those travelling west through the village. HGVs will meet other HGVs at this new build-out pinch point. Heaven forbid they meet speeding ambulances. Members of the Crosshouse Neighbours Placemaking Group, the Community Council and elected members were due to meet with Ayrshire Roads Alliance in December 24. This meeting was cancelled by Ayrshire Roads Alliance because they didn't have enough information. Ayrshire Roads Alliance and Planning have since refused to meet on site with representatives of the local community to discuss this access, pavement design and safety concerns, despite repeated requests. We are relying on you, the Planning Committee, our elected members, to force the developers, East Ayrshire Council Planning Department and Ayrshire Roads Alliance to address road safety concerns. The Planning Department have not even made the developers amend their site plan to clearly show the public what is being proposed with the build-out and pavement. There are chevrons on the site plan, no chevrons on the proposed works to Irving Road. The site plan does not show the pavement which stops behind Holmes Farm hedge, 3-metre high hedge. We request that this application design is rejected by the Planning Committee until the developers consult with the Community Council. At the very least, we request that before any decision is made by the Planning Committee, that the developer is required to mark the extent of the build-out actually on the road, to peg out the visibility displays in both directions, to mark the new access, to mark the pedestrian crossing points, to mark the full extent of the new pavement along the front of the site, so that all elected members deciding on this controversial access design can clearly see on the ground exactly what they are voting for. It's the least their constituents deserve. If, after you have seen it clearly marked on the ground and you decide to support this application, we formally request that planning condition 27 stating traffic calming measures on the B7081 need to be introduced is amended to include consultation with Crosshouse Community Council and all emergency services. Thank you. And this is my personal objection. So today isn't just about Crosshouse residents. It is about every motorist, every cyclist and every pedestrian that passes through our village. If the committee is minded to say yes, I ask you to pause and see if you can answer these questions. Where is the missing speed survey? Why did the transport assessment and stage 1 road safety audit not review an on-site speed survey? Are you aware the transport assessment uses national census data from 2011 to justify the access design? The company who wrote it commenced voluntary liquidation months after writing the report. They will not be held responsible for this road design. You will. Where is the missing 13-day noise survey of the farm? Are you aware East Ayrshire Council has already discussed taking enforcement action on the farmer and new residents of this site in relation to noise from the farm? Are you happy new residents will not be able to peaceably use their gardens when the farm machinery is in operation? The noise impact assessment conclusions only assess the garden use in relation to road noise, not farm noise. Are you happy increased HGV traffic from a planning application you approved, I think in August, for the industrial estate opposite the hospital hasn't been addressed or assessed in this planning application, report of handling or by Ayrshire Roads Alliance? Are you aware that a police van responding to an emergency call recently crashed at Thornton, hospitalising 2 officers? Ayrshire Roads Alliance requested 215-metre visibility displays, presumably to avoid such accidents. After the developers agreed a £78,000 developer contribution with the council, Ayrshire Roads Alliance U-turned. Ayrshire Roads Alliance told the developer that the application would be rejected if they didn't present a stage 2 road safety audit before planning decision was made. After £78,000 was agreed, they U-turned. Environmental Health said developers needed to present further smells after further smell surveys. After £78,000 was agreed, they U-turned. Douglas Reid said, I too have serious concerns and have raised the issue of the sight lines and safety of the junction with Ayrshire Roads Alliance. Is he about to U-turn too? This is a problematic site. There are spaces for nearly 100 vehicles on this site. There'll be delivery vans in and out all day. They will need to stop dead in a live lane as they wait to turn into the site. Imagine a bus, a HGV, a tractor and trailer stopped behind a van waiting to turn. Vehicles will be backed up into the 60 zone. I request all members of the Planning Committee declare whether they have participated in a site visit prior to voting. I'd like members to assure us that you have physically seen where the path along the front of the site ends behind the farm's 3-metre high hedge. Would you let your kids or grandkids cross here? Is this being pushed through because the developers have agreed £78,000 developer contribution? Because that is what it looks like to your voters. That public safety is being compromised for cash. And on that note, I'd like to share 2 quotes from Ayrshire Roads Alliance staff from a Freedom of Information request. First one from a transportation engineer. The principle of development should be possible. However, that does not then imply that East Ayrshire Council and Ayrshire Roads Alliance in particular should then throw good and safe design practices out of the window to allow the developer to realise completion of the project as easily and painlessly as possible, thus maximising their profit at the expense of road safety and common sense. And the second one in December 24 about the build out onto the carriageway. Whilst this does assist their development,
Miss Evans, that's
I'm
10
just
minutes. I'll
wrapping up.
Yeah, thank you.
Whilst this does assist their development, it should be noticed we will recoup charges through S56 applications, RCC processes, and planning will receive their own fees as part of the planning process. This quote from our very own Ayrshire Roads Alliance Head of Roads. If councillors choose to put profits before people, I hate to say this because I abhor his policies, but Nigel Farage and his Reform Party will have a field day at East Ayrshire Council. I asked you today to pause, to listen to your voters, and please put their safety first. Thank you.
Thanks, Mrs Evans. So members open up for questions. Councillor Maitland.
Ms Evans, in reference to your statement from the Community Council,
Mhm.
you are a statutory consultee. On the previous development, were you consulted?
The one that didn't detail the road changes, the one where the access was in a different place. Are you asking about that one? Yes. So the Community Council was consulted, I believe, by the developers, but then since changed the road access, and it didn't include the build out in that consultation. Thank you.
Members, any further questions for Miss Evans? I don't see anybody in the room or online. Well, thank you very much, Mrs Evans.
Thank you.
Next, I'm going to invite Ms Greta Roberts to the lectern, please. Just whenever you're ready, Ms Roberts.
Good morning. I hardly think as a planning consultant I need to say very much about this application. You have heard the strength of the local community in Cross House, the local residents and the owners. And as you know, this contentious application has been on the go since COVID in 2021. So they've stuck with it as the application has changed. It was first refused, then dismissed at appeal in 2023, when the reporter listed as main issues the relationship of the development with Home Farm to the west, relationship with the existing houses to the east, road safety and proposed open space to the development. The question of road safety and concerns about this has increased since the road layout was changed. I was very interested to see the photographs of the road there, and they were extremely black on the screen that we had to look at. But the visibility, and as Miss Evans said, the line was rather skewed, but the photograph looked exactly like the one in the Daily Record a couple of days ago, where the police a car was involved in the accident at Thornton that was mentioned. That's only quarter of a mile further west, but exactly the same large hedge there. The development plan required the development should be fully compatible with the surrounding uses, and you've heard of the incompatibility, to be of the highest standard and accord with the principles of placemaking. Placemaking seems to be a great issue with East Ayrshire Council, and are very, very interested in it. When this appeal was dismissed, the layout had little sense of place. Many of the features around this field will not change, and any developer has to take account of the farm and industrial activities at home farm, as you heard from Mr. Smith. Taking account of the farm and industrial activities at home farm, the silage muck spreading activities in the fields to the south, and the impact on housing to the east. I suspect quite a lot of councillors haven't really lived next to silage operations around Kilmarnock and in East Ayrshire. As you heard from Mr. Smith, it can be very often during the year. Around where I live, it's about 4 times a year. There's the noise and activity doing the silage, and then, of course, all the flies come out, and what is even worse is the muck spreading, which happens afterwards, so they can get another crop in a month or so's time. As the bottom of this site is undevelopable due to regular flooding, the developer graciously designated it for play, hardly accessible due to its slope, flood risk, and remoteness from many homes. Although there's a very curious comment in the planning report that to have sort of informal play areas would be gentler on the landscape rather than the traditional swings and roundabouts play area, which I thought, does someone really know the site? Because the site slopes down. Even you could have bigger play furniture down there. Anyhow, pride of place is a vital part of placemaking. Surroundings matter, which we are increasingly aware of in the Kilmarnock area. And suddenly there is a feeling that pride of place is important. And it's as important to many people now in Kilmarnock, where there are, which is clearly in trouble, but it's equally important in Crosshouse. The development is for 29 families where safe access and exit, safe play areas, available school places nearby. That doesn't seem likely. An open, peaceful outlook, these things are essential when choosing where to live. There are sufficient grounds to refuse this application on lack of compatibility with its surrounding land uses, poor access and visibility onto Irvine Road. What concerns me most is no crossing point for pedestrians going round a corner, but I can see why roads were, council was unwilling to sort of push for that. How are you to cross the road there to go for the bus, the school bus or whatever? There's so much lacking speed survey in Main Road, no e-charging points I didn't see on the sitting off area Miss Evans has talked
I'll just
about.
ask you to sum up quickly, Ms. Roberts.
I urge you to consider this very carefully. I know it's an old chestnut and you must be as fed up with it as everybody else, but this is not the right place for this size of development. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Roberts. If you just stay there for a minute, I'll just see if there's any questions from members. Oh, okay, thank you very much. Now we've got our final objector, and that is Mr. Colin Findlay, who's going to be objecting on behalf of Mr. William Duncan.
Good morning. I'm Colin Finlay. I live in Crosshouse in Fisher Way, which is about 100 yards away from the proposed application. I'm here on behalf of William Duncan, who gave me a letter to read out to you. My main concern with the planning application is that the new development affects my home situated directly opposite the proposed entrance, causing me concern the increased traffic from the new development entrance will be using a main road with no sightlines, and a proposed footpath on the side of the development will make the road even narrower, making the busy road even more dangerous. My understanding is that there have no due diligence undertaken by, or for that matter, and 25 years in our current address, we regularly experience emergency ambulances requiring to enter and exit the village, travelling to and from the hospital at a higher speed on a daily basis. So, to add another busy road opening to so many houses where the developers have suggested on the plan is, in my opinion, an accident waiting to happen. Over the years, I have seen a massive increase in vehicles passing through the village, with the addition of traffic from the hospital, the new maternity unit, from the new extended primary school, and now the new industrial development attached to Cruz House, which has approximately 255 car spaces marked on the plan, as well. I have great concerns that the council or developers have not put sufficient infrastructure in place to cope with this massive increase in traffic to protect pedestrians' flow through Cross House. It seems to me the developers are only thinking about profit, as they themselves won't be left with this major problem if planning is passed. I hope the Planning Committee have the common sense and insight to listen to Cross House residents' concerns and reject this application, making safety their main priority. And that's from William Duncan.
Thanks, Mr. Finlay. Obviously, you're reading out a statement from Mr. Duncan. He's not here to answer any questions, so we'll just kind of ask you to return to the gallery at that point. Yeah, thanks. So, members, we're moving on to part 3 of the hearing process. Sorry, part 4 of the hearing process, where we're going to hear from the applicant or the agent, who's going to, and I think it is Mr. Graham Patrick. Yeah, thanks. Mr. Patrick, obviously I've allocated 15 minutes, but there was a bit of time added on for the objector, so I'll be a bit lax with the time. Yep, that's fine, thanks.
Planning Director for Springfield Group, which includes Dawn Holmes. I'm accompanied this morning by Mr. Mark Malazinski, our Engineering Manager, who can address questions relating to traffic matters associated with this proposal. I'm also accompanied by Mr. Rocco Guidici of Bureau Veritas, who undertook all of the noise surveys that were discussed with the Council's Environmental Health Department. I've read the committee report setting out the application details and policy considerations, and I support the conclusions and recommendations of the officer's report. We seek support for this application primarily under LDP 2 Policy Res 1, New Housing Developments, which encourages and supports the residential of housing opportunity sites, of which this is one identified in your development plan. The application has the support of National Planning Framework 4. Indicative capacities are provided for each housing site within the plan, and in this case, the site has an indicative capacity of 30 units, and we are proposing 29 detached and semi-detached houses. Site-specific development requirements are also set out in the LDP, which state that the developer is required to provide an appropriate landscape buffer on that part of the site which adjoins home farm. That statement is contained within the local plan. and the purpose is to address any amenity concerns arising from the proximity of the site to the farm. We believe we have addressed all of these matters to the satisfaction of the Council, to the Planning Department and to the Environment Health Department by proposing a landscape bund and acoustic fence to address amenity issues from the adjacent farm. I would say in respect of matters relating to the septic tank raised by Mr. Smith, it's our position that the septic tank is not affected by the layout, and we have no intentions of destroying, and it will not be destroyed as a result of this development. It's contained within a landscape area and will be left untouched. And the proximity to the farm buildings. As the officer's report states, we have reduced the scale of development to 29 in line with the local plan. We have adjusted the layout to improve landscaping within the site and at the boundaries, and to protect the existing properties and respect the requirements for their privacy. We have moved houses to avoid impacts on existing properties, and we have introduced a natural informal play area within the site. We have addressed traffic impacts by proposing the relocation of the 30-mile limit and introduction of traffic calming measures. We have addressed education capacity concerns through developer contributions, which we are happy to agree to as set out in the committee report. And finally, we have addressed potential noise from the adjacent farm by incorporating an acoustic barrier and landscape buffer. I listened to the amendments to the planning conditions as set out by the officers, and I can confirm that we are happy with those changes to the planning conditions, and that we're happy to enter into a Section 75 as required to deliver the developer contributions towards education as set out in the committee report. My colleagues will have very brief comments in respect of their particular fields of traffic and noise.
Thank you. It's clear from what we've heard this morning that traffic and traffic speeds in the village is a concern, and rightly so. We've worked closely with Ayrshire Roads Alliance, had many discussions back and forth to arrive at a solution that is acceptable to them in terms of providing sufficient visibility for traffic entering and leaving the development, as well as dealing with traffic speeds by extending the speed limit, as Graham has mentioned, and providing traffic calming measures along with appropriate signage on road markings. We feel that the presence of development frontage along this route will enhance the nature of the road in terms of demonstrating that this is not a rural road, this is a development area. This will reduce speeds by introducing traffic calming. If everything was left to the status quo, nothing changes. What the development's doing is improving the situation for traffic. I would just add that beyond the any planning decision that may or may not be go ahead today, we would be obliged to go through a road construction consent process with Ayrshire Roads Alliance to fill up the detail of the design. That would involve road safety audits and so forth as part of that process. So this will be considered in great detail at this stage and beyond.
My name is Rocco Guidici, work for Bureau Veritas. So we conducted a noise impact assessment for the site. We've been dealing with the site for approximately 3 years, and in that time we've worked very closely with environmental health to understand their concerns regarding the noise impacts from home farm. We'd already agreed the best method to reduce noise impacts from urban road, and obviously there was slight sticking points with home farm, so we subsequently agreed to attend home farm, and we measured some of the noise levels there, and we based all our mitigation on the highest noise source within the farm. All our mitigation measures have been designed and modelled using the most up-to-date computer software, and we have we've managed to calculate the acceptable height for a barrier to suitably mitigate noise levels, so that internal noise levels within housing can be met. And we have specified suitable glazing specification and acoustic trickle ventilation to meet the requirements of environmental health. And that's probably about all I have to say, really. But this site can be the noise criteria that we were provided can sufficiently be met with the mitigation that we have recommended.
Thank you very much. Is that your presentation?
Yes, sir.
Well, thank you very much. So I'm going to open up for questions. I'm going to ask the first question. So obviously, housing's now pushing out into the countryside. Is it quite a regular occurrence that you're coming up against working farms, and have you had any successful mitigation previous experience in doing that?
I mean, sir, we have developed a lot of greenfield developments throughout the central belt of Scotland under Walker Homes, Dawn Homes and Springfield. And urban edge housing is very common, and we've never actually been asked to try and mitigate for things like silage taking place in nearby fields, which are beyond the urban area. And we have successfully completed many housing developments on the urban edge adjacent to the countryside without any issues being raised either before the development was approved or after the development's been built out. So it's throughout an authority like East Ayrshire, which is kind of more generally rural. You're always going to have housing on the edge of the urban area, therefore on the edge of the countryside.
Thanks for that. So members, open up. I've got Councillor Lennox.
There was some criticism levelled earlier from one of the objectors that there was lack of engagement with Cross House Community Council. Did the Community Council ever engage with you or try to contact you? Or did you reach out to the Community Council to hear their concerns?
No, sir. The application, given that it's under 50 units, there was no requirement for pre-application consultation. And so for that reason, we didn't hold any meetings with the Community Council, which we would normally do in any planning application for 50 houses or more. And so there was no statutory requirement for us to do so. I have met with Mr. Smith and with Evans, not in the capacity of a Community Council meeting, but we have engaged with them and we have met them and we understand their position. However, all we've tried to do is to make them understand our position as well.
There might be lessons to be learned in future, regardless of the size of the development. It might be prudent to engage with the local authority, Community Council, in terms of any planning applications.
I mean, all I can say in our defence is that I'm a professional planner, and most of my engagement has been with the officers responsible for determining the planning application in accordance with the plan, and that's been my focus.
Thanks. Quite happy with that, Councillor Lennox. I'm going to bring in Councillor McGee and then Councillor Maitland.
Thanks, Chair. I've got 2 or 3 questions, no particular order, but hopefully you can cover them all. Firstly, you covered the issue of the septic tank in your presentation. I was just wondering if you could maybe talk about the gabion walls at the adjoining housing estate. You also said that you were, I wanted a wee bit more information on a natural informal play area. Just so that I can, what does that mean? The noise mitigation that you're planning to carry out, and you said you were happy with the changes to the conditions, and the condition says will be maintained in perpetuity. Maintained by who exactly? That's what I wanted to find out. That's maybe something for the planning, but hopefully you can answer it yourself. And I think it was conditions 7 and 17 talk about the landscaping. And I think as a councillor, we get a lot of sites and we go and see sites. This is maybe the best time of the year to see sites with the landscaping, because obviously there's no growth and a lot of plants are dying off. But when you say landscaping, do you mean proper, real landscaping? No 2 or 3 trees that 2 of them after 3 months and they're left hanging to the side. I was wanting some details on the landscaping. Thank you.
I'll try and recall all of those points, Councillor, but if I deal with the landscaping first, there's what you saw on the screen was the overall plan that Fiona Finlay showed of our landscaping details. That was just a key to the plan. There's a full specified landscaping plan accompanying the planning application, which lists species of plants to be planted and in significant detail. And so it's not just a couple of trees here and there with some grass. The landscaping will be factored, so we will transfer it to an organisation such as Scottish Woodlands, which is one of the common ones that we use. They take title to the land, and built into the deeds of the properties is a responsibility to pay Scottish Woodlands on a monthly basis and a sum of money to maintain the landscaping, and that would include the landscaping buffer and the fence, the acoustic fence as well. So we would transfer that responsibility through a legal document to an organisation such as Scottish Woodlands, who would be the factor, and they would maintain all of these areas on behalf of the residents going forward. Sorry, can you remind me of the other points you raised?
So you might, John.
The respect of the gabion walls, we have the development doesn't impact on the gabion walls. We've pulled back from the gabion walls, even although the gabion walls are constructed on our own land, as far as we can tell from a legal document. But we have no intentions of disturbing the gabion walls, and indeed we've kept any fences and landscaping to a minimum along there to allow a third party access to maintain them should it be necessary. So The development, the foundations of the houses are nowhere near the gaming walls, won't affect it. And there's no digging out planned at all in respect of anything that would impact on the gaming walls at all.
And the last one was a natural informal play area.
So the site, in terms of the council's local plan policy for play provision, the site is below the 200 threshold for a formal play area, which any housing site of 200 houses or more would require to provide, which includes swings and slides, etc. But what we are offering to install are more informal areas. So they're like wooden walkways that children can play on, and we often use boulders, large boulders, which they can scramble over and play on, and then a little bit of landscaping, mounding, etc. So it's more, it's not just a flat area for kicking a ball about, but it's not a full-blown, fully equipped play area. But there will be equipment in the form of more natural wood and stone. And the details have been submitted to the planning officer.
Thank you very much. So I'm going to bring in Councillor Maitland and then Councillor Saxton.
Thank you, Chair. I have a few questions very similar to Councillor McGee's, but maybe just a bit more expansion on them, John, if that's okay. So first of all, go back to the Gabion walls that you said that they aren't going to be damaged in any way. So how do you guarantee that stability and the integrity of the Gabion walls if there is work going on around them? You've said they won't be damaged, so how do you establish they won't be damaged?
Well, we can normally in any construction site we would put a Harris fence around the area within which the development's taking place. So we could fence the gaming walls will be on the outside of that Harris fencing during the construction period.
Okay, I've got a few more questions. Is that okay, Chair, if I just go through them? Also, we're talking about you can see in the map up there, I've been looking at another map from my screen here. I think it's the map just before it, Fiona, but there's a 10-metre landscaping buffer.
Yes, I'm aware of it.
10 metres, just 10 metres. And what height is the acoustic fence and what is it made of?
The acoustic, well,
I can answer that, yeah.
You can speak to the specifications.
So for a barrier to be effective and suitably reflect noise, it has to have a minimum density of 10 kilograms per metre cubed. So basically it can be constructed of any material, but we've suggested, because we have 10 metres to play with, a 2-metre bund, and then at the apex a 2-metre close boarded timber fence of sufficient thickness. But in reality you can construct that barrier of any material you wish. Could be a brick wall, could all be bund, could be all timber fence.
Can I carry on? Is that okay? It's my mic on, just checking. Did you say 2 metres?
So it would be the total height of the barrier would be 4 metres in height. So it can be a combination of a bund and a barrier. For example, a 2-metre bund with a 2-metre fence at the apex of the bund, essentially giving you the 4 metres.
Okay, maybe I'm just being extra dense here. So it's a 2-metre bung and then 2-metre fence on top of that. So it's a 4-metre fence.
In total.
So it's twice the size of a garden fence.
Yes, essentially.
On top of the fence. And what covers the bund?
Guys, look, it's proposed to landscape the bund, which would have the impact of softening the fence, because the landscaping will be up the entire side of either side of the bund, and those details are shown in the landscaping drawings. There are also in the drawings submitted to planning sections showing the relationship between the proposed house, the back garden fence of the house, the slope of the bund, fence, etc. So those details were all contained within the documents that we've submitted.
Apologies. Family. I have seen the details of it. I just wanted clarification on it.
So our intention is.
Councillor Maitland, see when the applicants answer you to make off the cameras fixating you.
Sorry, councillor. It's our intention that the bund is not just a grassed bund. It will be landscaped, which and I've seen in other circumstances. We have a site in Tranent in East Lothian where we had to install a bund and a fence, and the landscaping has grown up the fence, as it were, so that it doesn't look like a back garden fence stuck on top of a mound of earth. It's softened by the landscaping on the bund itself.
And following on from Councillor McGee, will it be evergreen stuff that's going in here? Is it going to disappear in the winter in terms of density?
I'm not an arboriculturist, so I would need to refer back to the landscaping drawings. But the landscape, the instruction to the landscapers was to put shrubs and plants on the bund, which will help stabilize the bund as well, but also have the ability to perhaps grow up the fence.
I have another question. From looking at, you said you've addressed the privacy issues, and the first lady that spoke said that she would actually be looking down, and I do know the area, so she would actually be looking down, and you said here that you'll respect the privacy, but she's saying she can see right into these new houses and they'll be able to see into her, so it sounds like that's not been addressed.
Well, we have worked very closely with the council officers on this particular part of the site, and we have pulled houses back to a point where they are not obstructing the views from the house. And my understanding from the orientation of the drawing is that the views would be into the front garden, not into the back garden of the property, which sits lower. The house next door doesn't sit up. The one which backs onto the houses in that corner of the development sits at a lower level than the house that was mentioned, but it also has a 2-meter fence at their back garden level, whereas the house in question has no fencing on top of their back garden is at level, and then there's a drop with the gabion wall down to our site. But the overlooking is not overlooking what will be the new private gardens. It would overlook the front of the house and their front garden, but that's not a private area. And there are no window to window situations. There's no windows overlooking the existing houses.
Sorry, can we just have no shout for the public gallery, please? Let everybody's had their opportunity to speak. Just respect everybody's opportunities. Thanks.
We adjusted the detailed housing in close cooperation with the planning officers to achieve an acceptable situation.
Okay, if I continue.
Yeah.
Thank you. So because it's looking into front gardens, that's not considered a privacy issue. Is that what you're saying?
Front gardens would be public.
Okay. Can I carry on? I have 2 more questions.
Okay then.
Thank you, Chair. Actually, we'll just stick to the one more question, if that's okay. If we're looking at the children's play area down at the bottom, and I see that there's suds there. So there's a sud spawn there, an underground suds. Now, is that to catch the water from the flooding? Is that because it is a flat area next to the river down there? I just like that addressed. Thank you.
The councillor, the suds that you're seeing on the drawing there is to do with the on-site drainage for the proposed development. So all the runoff from the new roads, roofs, driveways, etc., gets captured within the drainage system into that suds tank where it's held back. So it is not discharging into the river at a high rate. So it's slowing down, which would mitigate against the flooding.
Thank you, Chair. I think the other questions will be for the officers. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm going to bring in Councillor Sangster.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Actually, the questions that I was planning to ask have already been asked and answered, so thank you.
Councillor Filson.
Just for the noise survey, when you were doing a noise survey at the farm, what came out the highest? Just a matter of interest.
The highest noise level was from the slurry pumping activities, which was about 109 decibels.
So quite loud, eh?
It's very loud.
Thank you.
So members, any further questions for that? No. No, there's no one online. Oh, thank you very much. So we just return to the public gallery, please. We'll close at this point and ask our planning colleagues to address anything that's been brought up during the hearing process. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Burton. I'll say a few points and then perhaps bring in colleagues from ARA if that's what you would like me to do. There were some comments made regarding the location of the play area. We have consulted with ARA Flooding and SEPA paragraph 19 and paragraph 24, who have no objections to the play area being located here. There were questions related to the format of the play area. Councillor McGee, I think you may use that as well as Councillor Maitland. Apologies. Just trying to remember what everybody said. We have actually got conditions in the report, and I did have them, and I'm going to see if I can relocate them. Condition 25, just to get the further details of specification, etc., of the play area. Because it is under the threshold for formal play equipment, we have pushed the developer to do something where it's more natural play, where children can use their imagination, where children can use the area as a play area, but without formal play equipment. So that's what we've looked there, because it is under the threshold for the provision of formal play space. In terms of the overlooking matters, the developer has clarified that, and it's also within your report at paragraphs 55, 56 and 57 on page 17. Just to clarify, there were comments made about how ARA changed positions following the clarification of the developer contributions. Just to clarify, the developer contributions are actually educational matters. They're not ARA matters. ARA were not part of the discussions about developer contributions, because the developer contributions are required for the educational provision in the surrounding area, and ARA were not party of those discussions. So the ARA confirmation of their acceptance of the development is not related to the developer contribution payment. There was consultations referred to with the Community Council. Mr Patrick was correct that because this is a local development, there was no formal 12-week pre-application discussion. The planning service send out, when we have a planning application, we send out weekly lists to the community councils, who then have the opportunity to either comment or be consulted should they wish to do so. I'm just having a wee look to see if there was anything else. I think that's me for the moment. Obviously happy to answer questions in due course. I don't know whether Craig's coming in next or whether you want to bring in ARA. I'll leave it with you for the moment.
Yeah, we'll bring in the ARA colleagues and then bring Craig. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Quite a lot to cover there from a roads perspective. Can I just start by saying Fiona covered it there in some regard, but ARA would take no cognizance of any income that would be generated by the development, and our role is purely to be a consultee in terms of technical assessment and review of the development proposals against the council's guidance, adopted guidance for new developments, and that's the Scots National Roads Development Guide. And in this case, the proposed access satisfies those standards. With the negative suspensive condition, that ARA's assessment of the site access was considered against a 30 mile an hour speed limit as opposed to the national speed limit. Designing streets national guidance requires a 43-metre visibility display for a 30-mile-an-hour limit, 59 metres for a 37-mile-an-hour limit, and the 90 metres, which is shown by the developer, is shown to be achievable within the public road boundary, and a condition has been attached to the, or is proposed to be attached to the consent to secure that. A roads construction consent, the developers mentioned already, a roads construction consent will be required for the new access layout, and a stage 2 detailed design and stage 3 opening road safety audit will be required, and any recommendations from these will give further opportunities to fine tune or adjust the layout to address any issues that arise. The road layout proposed with narrowing and a deviation is not unusual, and this type of layout is often used as a traffic calming feature to slow vehicle speeds. There was reference to emails back in October 21 from our officers copied to planning that were released as a freedom of information request, and that those discussions were part of ongoing dialogue regarding access to the site based on the current national speed limit. The outcome was that to enable any development, the speed limit of the road would require to be lowered, and hence the negative suspensive condition that's now been recommended. Pedestrians, regarding, there was some discussion about pedestrian crossings. So the pedestrian crossing points in the form of drop kerb crossings are shown to be located close to the new proposed access point, rather than the end of the footway that's been mentioned. We're currently in, we would obviously have to have further discussions through the TRO process regarding the actual extent of the new 30-mile-an-hour limit, but initial indications would be that this would be to the west of the existing farm access, and the traffic calming proposals as well would require to be brought through the normal statutory consultation process. Under the terms of the Road Scotland Act, the traffic calming would have to be consulted via statutory guidelines, and the fire service, the NHS bus companies would be included in those, and it's our standard practice to also include the community councils in that. Adverts would be placed in local newspapers and on site and on the Tell Me Scotland website, and if there was outstanding objections to those traffic calming proposals, then they would be put back to local members for a decision. And if there was no decision made through that route, then that would require a formal report back to Cabinet. Similarly, with the 30-mile-an-hour TRO, through the Road Traffic Regulation Act, that requires to be advertised and noticed to the police as a preliminary consultation, then to statutory consultees, and again the Community Council would be included in that process. If there was outstanding objections that couldn't be resolved, then that would be referred back to Cabinet for a decision. Accident history. So the last accident check was carried out by ARA for a 26-year period back to 1999, and it showed one slight injury collision recorded at the Crawfordland Place junction in October 2001. Speed surveys were mentioned. There's been no speed survey information undertaken or no speed surveys undertaken. Any speed survey information done at this present time wouldn't in fact be relevant, because there is that negative suspensive condition to drop the speed limit to 30 miles an hour. And I think, unless I've missed anything, I think that possibly covers most of the ARA matters. Thank you.
Thanks, Jane. So, Craig, I'm going to bring you in at this point.
Thank you, Chair. Just a small number of things. First of all, just to assure members of the public that, I think as you yourself mentioned, Chair, planning is not political in any shape or form. Planning is a quasi-judicial matter, and members, as you are aware, it requires to be dealt with in its planning merits in accordance with the development plan, unless there are material considerations to indicate otherwise. But just to reassure members of the public that quite clearly politics has no part to play and should have no part to play in the planning process. Thereafter, members, going back to what I said at the start, as you'll appreciate, I wasn't perhaps as detailed in the reasons that suggested a course of action, but I am obviously aware that one of the objectors has clearly referred to the Information Commissioner's Office and a referral been made to them. My view would be that quite clearly there appears to be a difference of opinion or view as to the noise impact assessment, and for that reason and that reason alone, if members ultimately were minded to approve this application subject to appropriate conditions and that section 75. It's for that very reason that given there is always a possibility, however remote, someone else may take a view on a certain document, that it's my suggestion to you right at the very start of this meeting was that we don't take account of the current noise impact assessment and we ignore references to it. That way there could be no suggestion, depending what may happen thereafter. On question mark, the planning permission, please. For that reason, my suggestion is the appropriate way to deal with this is by condition, and that would require the developer to come back in with a noise mitigation measure for the approval of the planning authority. And that as a consequence of that, as I invited you members, as you're entitled to do, would to be asked that the discharge of that condition would actually come before you, so that you yourselves could scrutinise and be satisfied on the terms of those appropriate noise mitigation measures. I think that's a reasonable and a proportionate way of doing with the issue regarding noise, particularly when I think certainly officers at this table, and I'm aware the applicant has also indicated during the presentation that a noise mitigation measure can be brought forward. Obviously, in terms of the play equipment, I think, as Fiona has alluded, there is a suggested planning condition which still requires the details to be approved, which would on that respect, that further information could come forward. Unless members have got any further questions.
That's great. That brings us on to the part of the proceedings where we open up to members for discussion, motions and a decision. So, questions about Councillor Sangster?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I've got a lot of concerns about this development. You know, I know we've spoke about the noise. I'm not confident that noise mitigation can be achieved. There's privacy issues, there's road safety issues. The play park I'm not convinced by. I think it's right on a flood risk. There is so much going on here, and I'm genuinely very concerned about this. I would be minded to propose refusal, but I'll let it, you know, anybody else that wants to come in for discussion. Thanks.
Chair, just on that, obviously it would be helpful, Councillor Sangster, just for the purposes of the minute, if you were looking to articulate that in the grounds of policy or whether it's material considerations. Obviously, what I would say is I think there's a reasonable proportionate way forward in terms of the noise condition. And obviously, you know, it's my role to ensure that members are fully informed and advised in taking their decisions. We are aware that quite clearly, you know, while it's ultimately a matter for the committee, I'm quite conscious we need to act reasonably and appropriately in terms of any decisions that may come forward. Because I'm obviously aware of previous planning decisions where the council has been found liable and wanting in terms of expenses because it's not been considered reasonable. So it was just to say it might be of assistance if that was to be taken forward, just to get more detail quite clearly from you on that point. And it's no disrespect, but I'm just conscious that we would probably need that given the potential for where else this may go.
Thanks, Craig. So I was wondering if I can ask Jane a couple of questions. So obviously the road safety audit, there's a few points, just like clarification on C2.6. So give way signs at the junction. At 2.5, the lighting columns, it's obviously this position is going to be shaded by a tree opposite the junction. And at 2.2, the vegetation obscuring a pedestrian crossing. So it's just to see how they were going to be mitigated. And then a further question, the current application site just now that we're debating is CHH3. But I'm also aware that the local development plan has home farm designated CHH2 as a housing opportunity. So I'm thinking about the 30 mile per hour zone, and where in the drawings for the mitigation, the safety mitigation, it's just beyond the home farm junction. Is there scope that can move further up to cover any future application that might come forward from CHH2, and it would also increase road safety there? Just your thoughts on that?
Chair. Yeah, we can consider relocating the 30 further than we have had discussions at the moment regarding. So at the moment, it's the position that's been put forward is about 30 metres to the west of the farm access, but that would be within our jurisdiction to extend that further if we felt that was reasonable and appropriate to do so. Obviously, that would require the street lighting to be extended as well, so there would be a cost implication for the developer. But if we felt and planning felt it was reasonable to push that further out to cover the other LDP site, that's certainly something we could look towards. With regard to the road safety audit, it would be up to the developer to satisfy the concerns that are raised in the road safety audit through the roads construction consent process to ensure there was measures taken to make sure that those were addressed.
Thanks for that. So I've got Councillor Watts wanting to come
in. Thank you, Chair. Now, I mean, I'm not that fully conversant with this particular part of Crosshouse, but I did attend the site visit that we had, I think it was last month, just before the last planning meeting. Having seen the B7081 at that time, and it was fairly early in the morning, in a respect, it was extremely busy, as I would expect it probably always is at that time, bearing in mind its location to the hospital, a crosshouse, etc. So, like Councillor Sangster, I have serious concerns about the road safety, and reading through the report that we have here, I personally do not feel that the road safety issues within this area are fully addressed either within our conditions or what's forthcoming from the actual applicant. So that's my position. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Councillor Watts. Members? Councillor Friel.
Thank you, Chair. Fiona, could you please put back up the photograph of the entrance to the site? Yeah, yes, it is. Is the height of those hedges, are they to come down?
Apologies, forget my mic. Yes, the hedging is to be removed and new hedging is to be planted further back from that, because the hedging needs to come out to help form the visibility displays. So we have asked the developer to put new hedging behind that. If I can just maybe move to this plan, and if you could just give me 1 second. So across the frontage of the site, yes, the hedge would be removed, and then we've asked them to put a secondary hedge behind that, just in front of the secondary access that you can see if you look at your screen. You've got the sort of 4 houses at the front of the site, and then you've got the access road for that, and you've got 4 or 5 trees there, and you've got a green line thereafter. That would be the hedge replanted to try and re-establish it and create a frontage at the back. But that hedge across the front of the site, and Jane may wish to come in and just clarify anything as well, but that's my understanding.
Yeah, thanks, Fiona. Yeah, just to say the visibility displays that are shown on the detailed drawings that we have do show that 90 metres can be provided within the public road boundary and the site itself with the removal of the hedging.
Chair, if it also helps members, I know there's obviously been some discussion, but in terms of the proposed conditions, which you'll find in your papers from page 27 onwards, quite clearly we have a proposed amended condition 2 that talks about a traffic regulation order will require to be in place before development can commence on the site, which will look to extend the 30-mile-an-hour sign to the west of the development. And I think what there has been talk about could be further than the west of the farm as well. So no development can take place until that traffic regulation order is in place as proposed. We obviously have a proposed condition 3 that's saying no development works other than works to form the sightlines can take place before development in the site. We also have, as well, as you'll see, a condition 27, which requires the applicant to come back in with the plans for the traffic calming features. So further information will be required from the developer in terms of that proposed or suggested condition 7, which hopefully can address some of the further concerns that members may have on the traffic grounds. Namely, there are conditions there to address and deal with a number of those issues for members in terms of those specific condition numbers.
Councillor McGee, then Councillor Maitland.
Thanks, Chair. I'd just like to explore further the question that you had asked yourself about extending the 30-mile-an-hour further for possible further development, if that was the case. And if we were to do it just now, would that require a further condition to be implemented now, or does the conditions that are there cover that?
Sorry, Chair, to assist Councillor McGee, the amended proposed condition will just refer to extending the 30 miles per hour limits on the B7081 to the west of the development site. So, and as we know, for the traffic regulation order procedure, there's a kind of consultation procedure with, I can't remember, Jane can confirm more whether it's just specified consultees or whether it's more general. But obviously, what we are saying is no development of the site can take place until the 30-mile-an-hour limit has been agreed, and quite clearly that condition would allow it to go further out.
Is it all right if I come back in, Chair, just to say that folk are quite rightly concerned kind of about the traffic implications, speed of traffic coming through there. I'm familiar with the site, but I think the conditions that we've got to go through this further consultation before any development can take place, and that's got to be our satisfaction. I think that gives me a great comfort regarding this. Thank you.
Through you, Chair, obviously also the fact, as planning colleagues will say, this site is allocated for housing in the local development plan. It's been through already a process within the council and also through the process of a reporter appointed by the Scottish Government to examine our local plan. And obviously, as a result of that full process, the site has also continued to remain within our local plan as allocated for housing. So the principle of housing at this location we're talking about has been established because it's through that process. So unfortunately, and I understand what people are saying, the position here is it's not the case that houses cannot be built here. The principle is there, it's an allocated housing site, it's been through that process. So it's just about whether or not, I think, as Councillor McGee you're alluding to, is whether or not members feel that the proposed conditions there and the Section 75 agreement and what we're proposing should happen, certainly to some of them, are appropriate and adequate for you, or whether, quite clearly you feel there are specific material considerations that you don't feel that you can support. But certainly it has been through a statutory process. The principle of housing is now established for this location because it's in the plan.
Quite happy with that, Councillor McGee? Yep, it's okay then. So I'm going to bring in Councillor Maitland and then Councillor Maben.
Thank you, Chair. Questions for Ara. Jane, you said there was only one incident reported, but we heard of 2 incidents just recently. So can you explain maybe the timeline and why these incidents aren't included? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Maitland, and through you, Chair. Our statistics only include injury accidents, so if there've been non-injury accidents, they don't appear in any police statistics that we have access to. So there may have been minor non-injury accidents that we wouldn't be aware of.
Thanks. Councillor Maben.
Thank you, Chair. My colleague Councillor Sangster has already proposed that we vote against this. I would like to second that. There's too much going on here in my mind. The whole thing is too messy. There are too many problems and too many mitigations. The stuff about noise, the noise survey is looking at 103 degrees. Local people are detecting the noise and the smell hundreds of metres away. If I'm working in a factory, I'm wearing earplugs at 90 decibels. So 103 decibels strikes me as being far too loud for the area. There's the privacy issues that have come up, the road safety issues and different mitigations for that. I'm not comfortable with. We're adding traffic to that area. The flood risk, looking at the site plan, it looks like the south of the site plan, there's a flood risk, so we can't build houses there. I will just throw a wee play park down there. It just doesn't look good. There's a wee play park on a steep bank and that just doesn't look good enough. There's lots of different things here that are just going wrong. There's too much confusion. There's too many conflicting reports. It's too messy and there's too many mitigations. I don't like it. I really don't like it. I don't believe the noise mitigations are achievable. And I'll be voting against this.
Through you, Chair, again, I think just I'd reiterate my comments as I did to Councillor Sangster, just to be clear. Councillor Maben, the specific areas that you're not happy with and the reasons, is it your position that notwithstanding the policy position or for that matter the conditions that are proposed, you feel that the conditions themselves wouldn't be sufficient as a material consideration in order to make this compliant from your perspective? The reason I'm asking is, you know, and it's no disrespect, but I'm aware the council has previously been here in the terms of, for example, Fardale Hill, where an application was refused on certain grounds and the reporter suggested that there may not have been a reasonableness to it, where obviously there were considerable costs involved for the council. So it's just to be absolutely clear on what the reasons are for refusal, and it's not to be difficult or to be disrespectful, just so that we've got that for the purposes of the minute.
Councillor Sangster, I think it was yourself that was putting the proposal for refusal forward. Do you have a policy?
Yeah, so reasons for refusal would be, first one would be contrary to policies Res 3 and OP1 of the LDP2, as a proposed development would lead to an adverse impact on the residential amenity of future residents due to the proximity to home farm and the operations within the farm. Second reason would be contrary to policy NE12, as the proposed residential development would negatively be impacted by noise and odours, which we've not spoke about because we seem to have concentrated on noise, but odours also from the adjacent farm. Reason 3 would be contrary to policy T1, as the proposed development would lead to a road safety risk due to the proposed location of the junction to the development on the B7081 Irvine Road Crosshouse. And the fourth reason would be contrary to policy OS1. The play area is proposed to be located within a floodplain. It would then be unusable as a functional open space due to flooding. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sangster. Thank you.
I'll confirm they're reasonable planning grounds.
Councillor Maben, you are going to second that? Yep. Councillor Watts, your hand's up. You want to come in?
Yes. Yeah. To be honest, on the reasons for refusal, I think there's also the negative impact on amenity and road safety, as is put in MPF 4 policy 14, which would be quality, design, and place. So that also is another reason for refusal.
Chair, I'm obviously conscious with the motion that's been brought forward by Councillor Sangster. Are you happy or content to incorporate what?
Yeah, I'm happy to incorporate that as well. Thank you.
So we've got a motion for refusal. Is there any contrary motions coming forward? Councillor McGee. Bring Councillor McGee, then I'll bring in Councillor Crawford.
I mean, I think this has been a difficult application. Ken, it's been in existence more than just recently. I think there's been numerous changes made, and I think the conditions, some of them that have been changed, as I've indicated this morning, I think assuage my fears certainly that no development can take place until we go through all the further consultation regarding roads, and there's, I believe there's further details to come back regarding the noise mitigation, etc. So I would make an amendment to say that I would accept the planning recommendations as is, subject to all the conditions and the changes to the conditions as has been laid out today.
Councillor Crawford.
Just the same basis, Chair. But I've heard a lot of insinuations today. We've had somebody that had written reports that swears what we're going to do. I've listened to them all. We take our advice for the experts, our planning, and I'm quite satisfied that the conditions will satisfy me. I'll second Councillor McGee.
Thanks, Councillor Crawford. So we've got. Do you want to just iterate how we're going to vote?
So the amendment is for refusal. Are you going first? Sorry.
Through you, Chair. Sorry, no. The motion is for refusal. The amendment is for approval.
Could I also just confirm the amendment includes the changes to the conditions that yourself, Craig, and Fiona specified at the beginning of the meeting? Just to get that clarified from Councillor McGee.
So the motion is for refusal as the application does not comply with policies RES 3, NE 12, T1 or OS1 of LDP 2 and policy 14 of the National Planning Framework.
And I think OP1.
And OP1. And the amendment is to approve the application with the conditions amended as outlined at the start of the meeting. Can you let me know if you're for the motion or the amendment? Councillor Barton.
For the amendment.
Councillor Frail. Councillor Sangster.
Motion.
Councillor Mabin.
For the motion.
Councillor Maitland.
Motion.
Councillor Lennox.
For the amendment.
Councillor Watts.
Motion.
Councillor Crawford.
Amendment.
Councillor Falson.
Amendment.
Councillor Kyle. So the amendment is carried with 6 votes to 5 in favour of approval.
Can we just double check that?
Yep, sorry, we're just getting clarification of the numbers here, but it is indeed 6.5. So, Councillor McGee, it's just to clarify that obviously we want to bring the discharge conditions of condition 26 back to committee.
Sorry, Chair, I thought it was quite clear. I would accept all the changes that we've made today as outlined by officers, and the fact is earlier, I think it was yourself that said we'd bring this back to committee for the discharge. Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank
just
you.
to clarify.
Yeah.
Thanks very much.
So for the minute, the application has been approved subject to the conditions as amended at the start of the meeting.
Members, I'm aware that's been a quite lengthy hearing. Would you want to take a recess? Yep, we do 20 minutes. Yep, thanks. So come back at, I'll come back at past. Robert, can we stop the recording just now, thanks? Thank you. So members, moving on to item 4 on the agenda, and that is planning application number 25/0374/PP. And it's new petrol filling station, jet wash and shop at land at Kilmarnock Road, Mauchline, East Ayrshire by Grove Retail Limited, and that is on pages 35 to 50 of your papers. And I'm going to hand over to Barry Douglas to take us through the presentation. Thanks.
Thanks, Chair. Just firstly, just to go before I go on to the main presentation, just to point out a correction to condition 6 of the recommended conditions. This relates to the hours of operation of the jet wash. At the moment, we have 8 AM to 9 PM Mondays to Saturdays and 8 AM to 7 PM Sundays or on bank holidays. But you may recall when this item was last considered at the Planning Committee in January, there was a change to that condition, which was to make the operation from 9 AM to 6 PM on Sundays and in Scottish bank holidays. So it was to change that part of it. So it was to make it from to 9 AM to 6 PM on Sundays and Scottish bank holidays. So that's just a change to that. So I'll run through some of the slides now. So as I say, this is a revised proposal to one that came to Planning Committee in January, and it was approved in January, subject to conditions. There was an application for a non-material variation that came in. However, it was just beyond the point where we would consider it as a non-material variation, just with the changes that were proposed. So the changes mainly relate to the orientation of the shop, change the parking layout and installation of 4 additional pumps, along with some other minor changes. So I'll run through the plans now. This plan shows the location of the site. It's located to the north of Mauchline on Kilmarnock Road. The application site is outlined in red. Hillhead Heights housing estate is opposite to the east, and the Burns Memorial housing to the south, and to Bolton Road to the east. And again, the application site, a bit of a larger scale. It is a brownfield site and on the vacant derelict land register. It was formerly a petrol filling station, I think removed at some point in the 2000s, possibly. You'll see here as well, there is an access from the site into Craignow Cottage. Again, a bit of a closer view. This showed the original location of the previous filling station that was there, and the sort of layout of the hard standings and the entrance and exit points. And again, it just shows the topography of the site. It is a fairly level site. So this shows the proposed layout. Got the access and egress basically in the same points as they were there originally. The shop is to the north, has been reorientated slightly, but it's the same area, same retail floor area. Got 8 pumps under a canopy. There are 3 electric vehicle charging points to the south and a jet wash bay in this location. Hopefully you can see my cursor there, to the south east corner, and a jet wash, sorry, a vacuum bay and air bay, and parking along this western boundary, and a deliveries bay to the western side as well, and also cycle parking in that location. So this was just the layout that was approved under the 2024 application. You'll see there's not really that much of a change. The parking has changed. It was in the centre part of the site, so it kind of makes a bit more sense now being to the outer edge of the site. And the delivery bay was also to the road side of the shop, so being located to the other side I think has some benefits in terms of noise and disturbance as well to the residents across the road. And this is the layout of the shop. Retail floor, retail area shown in blue, coffee area, just the usual sort of things you would expect from a petrol filling station shop. And the external elevations kind of fairly commensurate as well with the nature of the proposal, being kind of clad in a grey silvery type cladding material, a flat roof. And that's this is the frontage of it that would face into the forecourt, and some sections through it. And this is it's a little bit hard to make out, but there are sections shown going through the site, so that the one at the top shows the elevation of the shop along with the canopy above that, and then the one below that is a section that will show the view from the roadside, so the side of the shop unit and the canopy area and the jet wash area there to the other side. This plan just shows the visibility displays proposed. So along with the access and egress, we've also got a signalised pedestrian crossing proposed that will help provide access, a safe access across the road from the housing development at Hillhead Heights. I'm moving on to some photos. So this is looking north with the access and egress points shown, and you can see the brownfield nature of the site there. And looking back the way to the south, and the Hillhead Heights development opposite. And looking into the site. Oops. And panning around a little bit. You can see there where the national speed limit signs are. I understand that the proposal from Transport Scotland is to, at the moment, this is a 30 area. This will be made into a 20 mile an hour speed limit, and there'll be an extension to the 30 limit that will extend further out. And looking north again into the current access into Craignow Cottage, the proposals include a new access to this cottage. And again, looking in the sites, looking to the west. And looking opposite to Hillhead Heights. And this is looking from Bolton Road to the west. So the recommendation is to approve the application subject to the conditions listed on pages 47 to 49. You'll see that 24 representations have been made, mainly on the grounds of traffic, road safety, noise and disruption, similar type objections to the previous application. We don't have any objections from consultees, which are Environmental Health and also Transport Scotland. And that's subject to the implementation of conditions relating to restrictions on hours of operation and so on for some of the elements, and visibility displays and the provision of the pedestrian crossing. So overall, the principle of the proposal is in alignment with both LDP2 and NPF4 as set out in paragraphs 19 to 24. In terms of some of the other main issues, access and egress arrangements and other transport related matters are considered to be acceptable. This is subject to conditions, as I just mentioned, relating to design and layout of the access and egress and the provision of a pedestrian crossing. Matters relating to noise and disturbance have also been considered and found to be acceptable, again subject to conditions to provide a level of mitigation. Condition 6 controls timings of the jet wash. Condition 7 restricts hours of fuel and commercial deliveries. And condition 8 requires details of condensers and mechanical fans to ensure that they operate within certain noise levels. You'll be aware as well that it is located next to the 76, so there is already a level of background noise as a result of that road and the traffic on it. The design and layout is considered to be acceptable for this site, subject to full details of landscaping being provided and implemented. And to summarise, the proposal is for a revised design to that approved. The changes proposed do not raise any material additional impacts or further issues in terms of policy. And overall, the proposal is considered to be in accordance with the development plan, and material considerations do not outweigh this. This application is therefore recommended for approval, subject to conditions listed as amended in relation to condition 6. Thank you.
Thanks, Barry. So members open up for questions. Councillor Lennox.
Thank you, Chair. I think we discussed at length the merits of this application, or otherwise for that matter, at the last application, and I don't see anything here that would materially change, certainly my view, in terms of supporting the application. I welcome the fact that Barry mentioned that the condition 6 had been updated to reflect those new timings, and I welcome the road safety measures at condition 3 as well. The proposed reduction to the speed limit in the trunk road through Mauchline to 20 mph, I think is going to make a huge difference in terms of road safety through Mauchline. Just one question for me in terms of the proposed pedestrian crossing. Would that be a traffic light controlled crossing, or just like a pelican crossing or something?
It is a signalised crossing, so we'll have the sort of traffic lights on it, yeah.
Even better. So from my perspective, I think, again, I welcome the move to rejuvenate this derelict site, and I'd be happy to move for approving the application subject to the conditions that have been listed. Thanks, Chair.
And I would second that, Chair.
Thanks, Councillor Lennox. Councillor Maitland.
Yes, I think this is a good proposal. There is just one thing I'd like to bring up, and that's signage. We've seen some absolutely appalling signage of late, and I'd like to think that the signage would be sympathetic to the area that's in, and considering that it's now facing onto a housing estate as well. I don't know how we capture that because it's branding, but I would like to point that out. Thank you.
That would be subject of a separate advertisement consent, so there would be a separate application needed for that.
Yeah, I think obviously the principle of the development's already been established back in February. So, Councillor Crawford, do you want to come in?
We need to work to the community council. Has there been no contact them again?
Do you want me to answer that? We didn't consult with the community council directly, but they do get the weekly lists of all the applications. We didn't hear from them, so we haven't had any response from them.
Councillor Lennox.
Just to address the concern raised there, I attend the community council meetings in Mauchline. This particular application was noted at the time, and the community council at that point in time didn't raise any concerns, certainly not to me.
Thanks, Councillor Lennox. So members, are there any further questions? Or? No. So the recommendations in page 35, paragraph 2, they'll be all happy to approve. So obviously with that amended condition, Barry. Yep. Right, thanks, members. We're moving on to item 5 on the agenda, and that is a conclusion report on restoration works at Chalmerston Surface Mine. And that's at Penny Penny at Chalmerston North, including extension, forestry land, Scotland. And it's in pages 51 to 69. Thanks, Councillor Filson, for that.
I'll maybe just have a wee declaration. It's no a declaration of interest, it's just the fact that I'm a neighbour to the site, so I'd just like to put that in the note. Okay.
Thanks.
I think it's a non-transparent, an open, a kind of transparency declaration.
Okay, and I think you're taking this one again, Barry.
Thanks, Chair. I think it might be Penny Vini, is it? Is it Penny Vini? There we go. Okay, so just quickly share this. So this report summarises the works that have been done to complete restoration works at the Chalmerston complex near Domellington. The Chalmerston site is located approximately 3 kilometres east of Domellington and accessed from the B741, which is the Domellington to Newcomnock Road. Open cast coaling operations took place until 2013 when Scottish Coal went into liquidation. The site, which is owned by Forestry Land Scotland, was left abandoned at that point. In 2021, limited safety works were undertaken within 5 defined areas with the intention that further design works would be put on hold at least until the commencement of the North Kyle Wind Farm, which is within the area of the open cast mine. There was a interim completion report that came before members around 2022 relating to those works. So the plan, sorry, I thought this was sharing and it's not. Oh, this will work. I should get rid of this. Start slideshow. Right. Sorry about that. So this plan shows the areas that have been subject to further restoration works, which we'll go into in more detail. So the areas are the sort of coloured areas that that work's been carried out on, and you'll see the layout of the North Kyle Wind Farm as well, with the turbines and access roads. So, as previously noted, North Kyle Wind Farm commenced construction in June 2023, and at that time, or around that time, the developer found there to be a large increase in the volume of peat, which would need to be excavated for construction. Following discussions between the parties involved, a restoration services agreement was entered into with the contractor for the wind farm to allow for this peat to be placed and spread on an area of open cast land needing restored. So this is the area that you can see, which is known as Area 3. It's a sort of highly disturbed area with steep slopes, materials all tipped onto it, and just, yeah, not attractive looking at all. The works involved dozer and ditch works and peat placement and spreading. So the contractor undertook the haulage of the material at their own expense, and bond money was used for, sorry, it was Brockwell contribution money that was used for the remaining works. And this shows the works being carried out. So the area had at this point been dozed, regraded, and the peat was being spread upon the site at this point. That was in 2024. And this is another view sort of further back showing the works that were completed. So following the completion, successful completion of these works in Area 3, 3 additional areas were identified for restoration in liaison with Forestry Land Scotland. And in order to facilitate these works, a variation to the original restoration services agreement was entered into with the wind farm contractor. Those works commenced in January this year and were completed in August, and I'll run through those works now. So this was one of the areas, Area 3 Pennyvenny Tip, which was regraded, and I'll show you the photos which hopefully show what was done. So you can see here the typical sort of open cast site, steep slopes, void, lots of materials lying around, no soils, etc. This was the outcome of the works. So slopes slackened off, water body reduced in area, regraded, smoothed over and ready for soils to be placed. This was another area, Area P, water body. So the proposal here was to infill. So the blue area is an area of infill and the purple area is regrading of an area. So this was it in 2017 before the works started. And this is it, 2025, just forming a much more natural contour to the land, ready again for the soils to be placed. And that would be Forestry Land Scotland that would be responsible for that. And again, Area P. This is probably one of the more notable areas known as Tabletop Mountain. It's an area of overburden which is quite prominent in the landscape. So Tabletop Mountain is this area that I'm circling at the moment. The original proposal was for the materials to be taken off this overburden area and pushed into a void area to the south. However, because of the presence of cables, high voltage cables that were installed for the wind farm, there were safety concerns about forming an access to allow for the soils to go into this area. So as a compensation measure, the same value of works were undertaken in another area of the site in another water body to tidy up the area around it. But anyway, just going back to Tabletop, this was it in 2013 and 2017. Very unnatural looking feature in the landscape. This was it from a kind of wider view. I think at this point works had commenced, but you can still see this kind of unnatural formation of it. And this is it once the regrading works had been completed. So you can see it does form, it's a much smoother gradient to it. And this is it again, another view. And a drone view of it. This was during springtime when it was very dry, so it looks slightly like a desert, but I don't think that lasted for too long. So obviously you'll see that and it looks quite bare, but Forestry Land Scotland will hopefully be able to get soils in, and that's what their intention will be, is to get soils in so that they can then plant trees. But it's been left in that position that it has the ability for that to happen in future. I don't have any photos of the other water body that have been tidied up, unfortunately. So in conclusion, it's noted that the works have been undertaken to a high standard to the satisfaction of East Ayrshire Council compliance officers and Forestry Land Scotland. The works undertaken will now allow for Forestry Land Scotland to import soils and carry out tree planting, as I've noted. It's also worth noting that in addition to the works that were the subject of a contract between the council and Forestry Land Scotland and Jones Brothers, the contractors have undertaken other works which meet the restoration aims for the site. Some of those were required for the wind farm and others were done as an additional benefit. These include the haul road narrowing and other incidental areas of regrading and tidying. The contracting of the wind farm contractor to undertake the works has also meant there's been significant savings when compared to the costs that would be incurred in contracting a separate developer to mobilise on site and do the work. It's also meant that the works could be done sooner than anticipated. It was expected that it would maybe need to wait until the wind farm had been mostly completed before we were able to commence. And as a result, there's been no need to utilise the money that was originally sourced from the bond money, which was available to the council. All of those works have been undertaken using Brockwell Energy contribution to the restoration works of £2.6 million, and the remaining council money remains unspent, with the exception of that was used for the 2021 safety works. So in summary, the recommendation is to note the completion of the Charmerston restoration works, and that Section 75 obligations relating to open cast coaling can now be discharged. Thank you.
Thanks, Barry. And some of these before and after pictures, it's quite transformational. Always blown away when I see them. They've done some great work there. So I'm just going to open it up, and I'm quite sure Councillor Filson's wanting to come in, and then Councillor Lennox.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Barry. And you've overseen a really transformational what's happened. I've been on the site 2 or 3 times, again, what a difference it's actually made. But lots to do yet, as you say, and we've got a wee bit extra money there. I would like to see that wee bit extra money maybe spent near the roadside, if you could, at the B741, because it's just water is ingressing from the site all the time, especially now how bad the roads are. It really ices up pretty bad. Even the grit doesn't look at that. So maybe I could meet yourself and Paul on site again, just have a wee look at that before you decide where the rest of the money is going to be spent. Because you can't enter the Doon Valley just now. You've got to go through traffic lights. And the A713 at Polnesson, it's been there for over a year now because of the slip there. And then the B741, 11 years the traffic lights has been there. So, and this is all due to heavy traffic. It's a pity we couldn't actually transfer that money out the red boundary line and get the roads sorted. It's a pity that ARA's got to pick up that tab now to try and get the roads all sorted. But a lot of good work done, and thanks very much for that. But I would like to meet you there, see, just run about to tidy things up, to make it a bit safer for folk getting back and forward from Dunmelling to Newcombe. Thanks.
As far as I understand, that the remaining money is going to be going to Cabinet in future. Don't know whether.
Yeah, there will be a report in terms of the funds that are left that will go to future Cabinet meeting, outlining where that money is to be spent.
Thanks, Barry. Thanks, Pamela. Councillor Lennox.
Thanks, Chair. It was really just to say that members of the Planning Committee witnessed firsthand some of these enhancements down there, and it really the improvements are to be commended. Really congratulate the folk involved in terms of the difference they've made down there, so well done.
Anyone else? No. So we're happy to note the contents of the report. Thanks. So that concludes the formal part of today's business. So Robert, could we please stop the recording, and thanks for your attendance.